Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. My dear students of linguistics, today we are going to discuss the elements of general linguistics, and the topic that we are going to discuss is language and communication. It's our first lecture on this topic, language and communication. And during this lecture, we shall discuss about man and language, linguists' views about language, characteristics of language. Language is linear and systematic. Language is symbolic. Language is arbitrary. Language is conventional. And in the end, we shall discuss that language is creative and unique. So, my dear students, first of all, on this slide, the points that we are going to discuss here are man as a talking being, language a means of better understanding of cognitive process, numerous points of view about language, and that language a system that contains other systems. So dear students, man has always been interested in language, as he has always been interested in other forms of human behavior. Since man is as much a talking being as a knowing being, his unending curiosity about himself and his surroundings is at the root of the emergence of the vast store of knowledge that he has gone on building. The wonder and amazement that he felt at everything that happened around him and to himself and his fellow beings have hardly dimmed with time. That is why there is always a process of renewal and revision, refinement and reworking going on in the massive, ever-replenishing storehouse of knowledge. And my dear students, the earlier thinkers were concerned with the composition of the physical world. According to Aristotle, of the first philosophers, then most thought the principles which were of the nature of matter were the only principles of all things, that of which all things that are consist, the first from which they come to be, the last into which they are resolved. This, they say, is the principle, and this the principle of things. So dear students, this is what Aristotle said about the composition of the physical world. So language was considered merely a part of human behavior, and therefore was included in the comprehensive view of life and environment. And my dear students, though it did not receive any special attention for long, language was never out of the field of scholarly interests. It formed a small part, one of means of communications of a better understanding of the cognitive process. So it means that language has always been used as a means, as a tool, as a source of understanding of the cognitive process, the physical phenomena and quest for truth. And dear students, what is interesting for us in this curious march through questions and inquiries, whether we look at the pre-Socratic philosophy or the medieval thinkers, is that interest in language was always alive. Linguistic issues were sought to be explained in the light of their understanding of extra-linguistic matters. And dear students, in our days now, we are more acquainted with the specialized source of way of language. It means that in our days, we know a lot more about language in a specialized source of way. Over the past century or more, language has come to be studied exclusively, and different points of view have arisen from which it can be observed. As H.A. Gleason says, language has so many interrelationships with various aspects of human life that it can be studied from numerous points of view. All are valid and useful as well as interesting in themselves. And dear students, these numerous points of view relate it to social organism. It's related to social organization, psychology, anthropology, culture, physics, physiology, information technology, etc. And dear students, this only stresses the fact that language is many things to many people. It means many people think differently about language. Having emerged as an independent discipline in the early 20th century, linguistics finds itself being linked to other disciplines. Has it helped us to understand the strangely complicated phenomenon language any better? It means, has linguistics helped us understand the most complicated phenomenon, that is language, any better? The answer is perhaps yes. It has strengthened the concept that language is a form of man's social behavior. It means that linguistics has helped us understand that language is a form of man's social behavior. That language, however personal and individual its use may be at times, is embedded in the social nature of his life. It is used as a vehicle to transmit ideas from person to person and generation to generation. In this way, helping society to march forward. Whatever the specialized point of view one may adopt in trying to analyze language, one cannot ignore the fact that language is an act that is essentially a social and inter-organism activity. And even in the extreme case, when we are talking to ourselves, we still, in a sense, have company. It means if we are not talking to others, if we are talking to ourselves, even then we have company. We are not alone. We are talking to someone. So, dear students, the supreme importance of language in its use as a tool, a vehicle of expression, a means through which interaction between human beings takes place. It means that language is a tool which is a source of communication among human beings. It's used as a tool to communicate thoughts and ideas to others. So man's social behavior is conditioned, in the first place, by the possibility of human communication, with the aid of language. Verbal communication is in this sense a condition of the existence of human society. The organization and perpetuation of culture is not dependent upon any person, but upon a complex interaction among many. The maintenance mechanisms are not within the individual. They are outside him, in society. The language is the product of human social behavior, and it cannot be overemphasized. It's a form of communication. And dear students, man communicates with other beings through various means. and in different ways. We shall consider this point later when we try to see the place of language in the overall communication system. Now, let's first look at it as a system which contains other systems. So let's look at it as a system which contains other systems. For example, phonological, morphological, syntactic, semantic, and so on. My dear students, they are first called language polysystematic. Each of these systems is a complex network of sets of rules and relations of mutual dependencies. It means all complex network of sets of rules and relations actually depend on each other. Units governing and determining other units. It means that within the systems there are units that determine other units. There are things which are mutually dependent. And my dear students, centuries of dedicated research and studies have revealed to us that language is a characteristic human product possessing an internal structure. So it means that research of centuries has proved that language is a human product and it possesses an internal structure. It operates with two kinds of material, that is sound or noises that human being is capable of making, which constitutes the expression part of it. And number two, the meaning. We have discussed that language operates with two kinds of materials. Number one, sound, and number two, the meaning. And sound actually is the noises that human beings create. And secondly, the meaning, content part, which is what the expression is related with. So the first part of language is the sound, and the second part of language is the meaning or the content. So this relation allows the human beings to transfer ideas from one another. Like other communicative devices, language provides a means of bringing this gap by converting ideas into a medium which does not have the capacity to pass between one nervous system and another nervous system. So my dear students, here on this slide we are going to discuss about the raw material of language and speech sounds, language and its subject matter, and that language is linear and systematic. So dear students, the raw material of language is sound. Any language used anywhere is first a spoken language. Writing systems are the inventions of the later stage in cultural evolution. It is necessary to bear this fact quite clearly in our mind. As Henry Sweet said, language is the expression of ideas by means of speech sounds combined into words. Words are combined into sentences. This combination answering to that of ideas into thoughts. So this is how language has been defined by Swedes. So traditional grammar does not take into account speech for descriptive purposes. So my dear students, it means that traditional grammar does not take into account speech for descriptive purposes. So speech is not actually discussed under grammar. So rather, written language is considered to be the finest and best example and help us as a norm for all our uses of language. The normative approach of the traditional grammarians does not include speech as the normal, widely used means. My dear students, linguistics, which is the scientific study of language, considers spoken language as primary and language that people use in reality as its subject matter. So here it means that language itself and the language that is spoken by people, that actually is considered the primary thing. The linguist does not dismiss written language from his field of study, but he gives it a secondary position. It means written language is given secondary position, but the language that is spoken actually has the primary position to a linguist. In describing a language, he is more occupied with the spoken than with the written form. So it means when a linguist describes a language, he is more concerned with the spoken than with the written one. As far as the description of language is concerned, sound units constitute its inner structure in terms of formal patterns which function meaningfully in different contexts. And my dear students, sound, form and meaning are three components of language as a system of communication. It means that sound, form and meaning, these are three components of language as a system of communication. The value of sounds and the meaning of meaning lie encapsulated in the formal patterns of language. And my dear students, sounds, the raw material of speech, are disturbances of air created by the conscious movements of the organs of respiration and those in the mouth. So dear students, here actually the definition of sound has been given as the movements of disturbances of air created by the conscious movements of organs of respiration and those in the mouth. It means that the organs of respiration and the organs in our mouth, so when they make some movements, we create sounds. So however funny, noisy or meaningless an alien language may appear, every language displays a fine organization of these noises. So any language of the world in which the movements of the respiratory organs and the movements of the organs in the mouth, those movements produce organized noises, and those organized noises, however meaningless they appear, they always are a source of interest to the linguists. So it uses sound particles as meaningful. It means language uses sound particles as meaningful, structurally relevant, structurally relevant entities that are accorded linguistic significance. It means that all particles of sound are meaningful and structurally relevant entities. So this fact points to another important characteristics of language, and that is linear and systematic. It means that language is linear and systematic. And now we shall consider these 2 points here. The 2 points are language is linear and systematic. So my dear students, sounds produced by speech organs emerge in an order in which entities succeed one another. This is seen when in transcribing it, we represent each sound unit by a symbol that follows other symbol. It is not important whether we are trained to write from left to right or in the reverse fashion. The linearity of the symbols occurring is a salient feature and must be properly understood. Secondly, man can produce a great variety of sounds. All of them can be represented by symbols, but all the sounds are not used by language. Out of an indefinite number of sounds, a language makes use of only a few. It means that human beings, when they use a language, they make a lot of sounds, they make a lot of noises, they have a lot of particles of sound, but all those noises, all those particles of sound are not used in a language. But only a few are used. So it is true, the orthographic system, that is alphabet and spellings, does not normally show all the phonemic or phonetic units. English vowel nasal has no letter. It means that the nasal sound does not have any letter. But even if all of these units can be shown, the number is definitely limited. We can then be able to describe a language in terms of the finite number of units that can combine only in a limited number of groups. So this constitutes the system of language. And my dear students, in fact, it has to be understood that within the comprehensive linguistic system, there are other systems. Each one of these shows further use of discrete and definite units into sets of rules. So we can produce an infinite set of sentences by a finite set of symbols. Thus, English uses the sound s and r, but it does not combine these sounds to begin a word. 3 sounds, g, a, and l, can be combined to have a word that is girl, but other possible combinations a, g, l, or a, l, g are not seen. It means that in language, if we have 3 sounds, g, a, and l, so these 3 sounds make the word girl. But the 3 sounds a, g, and l do not make any word. They do not make any meaningful word. Similarly, a, l, and g, these 3 sounds do not make any word. And these combinations are not seen in English language. So we can say, I saw a cat. But these combinations are not possible. A cat saw I, a saw I cat, I saw cat, cat I saw, cat I saw, cat saw I, and cat I saw I, etc. So these expressions are not possible, whereas I saw a cat is possible. So in this way, we conclude that language is linear and it is systematic. So my dear students, these expressions are all ungrammatical. So it's a practice in linguistic descriptions that an unacceptable construction is shown by an asterisk. It means that if an expression does not have any meaning, any sense, it is shown by an asterisk. We have to arrange these 4 units of grammar in certain sequence. Which unit must follow which other unit is determined by the rules of occurrence that govern them. It means that the rule of English language that governs them, according to that rule, we need to arrange, we need to organize these expressions so that they may make a sense. So this shows that linguistic rules are not just the isolated and scattered maxims we memorized at school. It means that the linguistic rules are not those isolated and scattered maxims that we memorized at school. The linguistic rules are something different. So they combine with each other to form a system. It means that linguistic rules combine with each other so that they may make a system, that a grammar which gives an explicit and exhaustive description of every sentence which goes to make up a language. So my dear students, besides these examples also indicate that there is a dual system of sound and meaning. It means the examples of sentences that we have discussed which do not make any sense if they are put in a disorderly manner. So this orderly manner and disorderly manner, a manner that is according to grammar and that is against grammar or against the grammatical rules. So these indicate that there is a dual system of sound and meaning. So word and meaning are correlated. And my dear students, we thus see that the language medium, the sound features or minor disturbances in the atmosphere that the speech organs create are organized in a complex way into various levels of functions. So from the smallest level, that is phoneme, to the highest text or discourse, these features are woven into a network of interdependence, rule-governed relationship, and mutual influence. Now, my dear students, on this slide we shall discuss that language is symbolic, and under this head we shall discuss what do we exactly mean by language being symbolic, and that different languages have different sound combinations, and communication of any sort heavily depends upon symbolization. So my dear students, while discussing language as a system within which other subsystems work, we have constantly been referring to symbols that are governed by specific rules. It means during our previous discussion, we have been discussing about symbols which are governed by specific rules and combined into various processes. So what exactly do we mean by language being symbolic? The question arises that what do we mean by language being symbolic? So my dear students, it's not so difficult to understand the symbolic nature of language. Human beings make use of sounds for symbolic nature of language. And human beings make use of sounds for every message to each other. Organizing their activities, governing the society effectively, expressing their personal wishes, desires, dreams, ambitions, thoughts and fantasies. And my dear students, out of an infinite number of possibilities of producing speech sounds, only a few are selected and assigned meaningful functions. So this use of sounds is symbolic. There is no logical reason why a sound like d combines with o and the two should join g to signify a particular animal in English, that is dog. In different languages, different sound combinations occur. In Hindi and Urdu, it is k, u, t, and a. And in Marathi, k, u, t, r, and a. So while in Sanskrit, it's a still different sound arrangement. So, but such combinations are symbolic. They designate numerous things in numerous ways. So, my dear students, looking at it a little more broadly, communication of any sort heavily depends on symbolization. Whether we see a red cross on a van or a building, railway and highway signs with school or level crossing marked, or the traffic light signals, or a man waving urgently at a distance, someone whistling softly or loudly under the window, a repeated gentle clap, clearing of throat, or gentle head shakes, and numerous other ways of communicating more than through words. It means that all these human activities or gestures, these gestures and human activities represent something. These are symbolic. We are showing our fine understanding of the significance of symbolizing the messages. It means through all these symbols, we communicate some idea to others, some message to others. The message in language is converted into sound in the following way. A to X. That is, arrow stands for becomes or is converted into. It means the arrow that we have shown at the bottom of this slide, that is A to X. It means that it becomes into or is converted into. It means that A is converted into X. So, symbolization in this context is the conversion of something from the universe of ideas or concepts into something capable of bridging the gap between sender and receiver. It means that language actually is symbolization, and these symbols, they actually are capable of bridging the gap between the sender and the receiver. So my dear students, in another place, Wallace says that the conversion of meanings into sounds allows human beings to transfer ideas from one to another. Ideas, I assume, have some kind of electrochemical existence in the nervous system of individuals. It means that in the nervous system of human beings, ideas assume some kind of electrochemical existence. And this is what Wallace believes, in what Wallace says about language. So he believes that ideas actually take the form of electrochemical existence in human bodies. So whatever their representations there may be, they cannot pass from one person to another in that form. It means in the form of electrochemical existence, human thoughts and ideas cannot be transmitted to others. For there is no direct neural connection between two separate organisms. So two human beings do not have any neural connection between them. Therefore, human thoughts and ideas cannot be transmitted or transmitted or communicated to others without any medium. No pathway over which ideas can travel in their original state. It means without language, there is no pathway to transmit thoughts and ideas. Human beings do not have any neural connection to transmit their ideas from one person to another. So language, like other communicative devices, provides a means of bridging the gap by converting ideas into a medium which does have the capacity to pass between one nervous system and another. So it means that human language is the medium of transmitting ideas from the mind of one human being into the mind of the other one. And my dear students, there is nothing in language that can directly be related to the physical reality, as in the earlier examples we have seen. So such onomatopoeic words as crash, rumble, flash, splash, dazzle, glare, flare, frizzle, crackle, sizzle, numble, and howl, etc. show some kind of relation to the things they represent. It means all these words that I have just mentioned, they have something to do with the object that they represent. It means that they are symbols of some objects and they have relationship with some other things. So some attributes of the things each mirror in the words. It means that in these words there are some other things which are represented, but up to a limit. It means that the use of these words, the use of these meaningful sounds is limited. The symbolic character of language leads us to another feature of it, that is arbitrariness. And now on the next slide we shall discuss this quality of language. So my dear students, we have discussed that language serves as a bridge between one nervous system and another nervous system by converting meanings into sounds. And now we are going to discuss we have also discussed the symbolic character of language that leads to its arbitrariness. And on the next slide, here we shall discuss that language is arbitrary. So, my dear students, under this head, we shall discuss the connection between the word and the things it stands for, and that it's unexplainable. We shall also discuss emergence of different meanings over a period of time, and we shall discuss orthography, that means different representations of a sound in different words. So my dear students, it's very symbolic character that makes language arbitrary. The connection between the word, that is the sound combination, or a sound or a sound unit itself, symbol for the sound unit, and the thing it stands for is unexplainable. It means that the sound that we make and the thing that it represents, so these two things are unexplainable. It cannot be explained why a sound represents a typical object. So why should voiceless bilabial plosive be symbolized per is difficult to answer. It means it is very difficult to answer why the plosive per is bilabial, why it cannot be symbolized, why per cannot be given a relation or a connection to anything. So different languages have different signs for similar phonetic features which make a sound. For example, per is symbolized differently in English, Russian, Hindi, Urdu, and Bengali or other languages of the world. It is purely arbitrary and has no logical explanation. It means that we cannot put forth any logical reason why the sound per is arbitrary and why it is used for different purposes. So it is purely arbitrary and has no logical explanation. And so with the several other sounds that are differently symbolized, it means that different sounds which are differently symbolized, we cannot determine their objects. In a word like tree or sky, there is little in the written or spoken symbolisms to tell us anything about the object that stand for. It means that the words tree and the word sky, we can't explain why they have their connection with typical things. It is difficult to explain. The plural morpheme in English, Z or Z, is represented by S, cat, cats. It means that the morpheme in English, that is Z, it is represented by S, like cat or cats. And N as in child or children, and other variant forms like xeromorph. Each of these symbols is purely arbitrary. It means the symbol that stands for Z sound, for S sound, and the sound N that is used in children. It means the word that is made from child or that is converted from child into children by adding n sound, it is unexplainable. We cannot explain it, why it is done and why it occurs in this way. So each of these symbols is purely arbitrary. The symbol s, z, and the sound n, these are arbitrary actually, and they can be used differently in different languages. The plural is used in all languages, but each language has a different way of realizing it. So my dear students, now we are talking about the use of plural that is used in different ways in different languages. Even in the case of onomatopoeic words, a degree of arbitrariness is noticed. Different languages have other particular onomatopoeic constructions. In Hindi, we notice the tendency to reduplication. It means that reduplication is done in Hindi language, or echo word construction. Alright, my dear students, on the level of grammar, we have just seen how plural morpheme is assigned arbitrary different phonetic shapes. It means that we have seen that in grammar, different sounds, different expressions, and different plural morphemes are assigned arbitrarily different phonetic shapes. In English, French, German, and Russian plurals. And in Russian, plurals are made in ways that cannot be predicted. It means that in these languages, the plurals that are made cannot be predicted if each of these languages is not known. Until and unless somebody knows these languages, he cannot predict the plurals. Another manifestation of the arbitrary character is the gender category to which different words belong. In Hindi and other Indian languages, it is too cumbersome. Two different Hindi words for leg are her and tongue. The first one is masculine and second feminine. There is no explanation why this is so. It means, for one thing, in Hindi, if there are two words, for example, pair or tongue, so if these two words are used for one object or for one thing or one part of body, so we cannot explain why it happens in that language. The first one is masculine, pair is masculine, and leg is feminine. And we can't explain why it happens in language. Why does it occur in this way? Why the quality of a masculine and why the quality of a feminine is given to two different words which are used for same thing. So there is no explanation why this is so. Similarly, for mustache, Hindi word moch is feminine. So is dadi for beard. It means that the two words that are moch and dadi, so these are feminine in Hindi language. But bal, that is called hair in English language, and hont, that is called lip in English language, are masculine. So here we have discussed two examples, the example of pair and tongue and the example of moch and dadi in Hindi language, and we have seen that tongue and pair, so these two words are used for the same part of body, but pair is considered as masculine, whereas tongue is considered as feminine. And similarly, for much and dadi, we take these two things or these two parts of body as feminine, whereas haunt and lip, haunt or lip, and bal are considered or taken as masculine. So all the Hindi words and many borrowed lexemes are thus arbitrarily put into masculine and feminine categories. So many borrowed lexemes are in this way arbitrarily put into masculine and feminine categories. So learning this language is also learning these gender classes, because corresponding verbs, possessive, pronominal, and modifying objects also change their gender forms according to which nouns occur. It means that if somebody wants to learn this language, Hindi language, he has to understand these characteristics of this language. Same is the case with other languages. If someone wants to learn those languages, he or she has to understand these characteristics, that why something is taken as masculine and why the other thing is taken as feminine. So this offers a perfect picture of the arbitrary nature of language. Now, my dear students, another curious picture is represented by the way different meanings emerge from word over a long period of time. For example, meanings expand and a word acquires a greater area of semantic references. Secondly, they contract. That means a number of semantic references drop. And thirdly, meanings also totally change. A word may refer to a completely new thing, discarding the original meaning it had. It means if a word in the past had a meaning, with the passage of time, that meaning may be completely discarded. And this is one of the characteristics of language. For example, bird, pig originally meant young birdling and young swine. It means the word bird originally meant young birdling and the word pig originally meant young swine. The meaning today indicates an expansion of this connotation. The words refer to any bird or any swine. It means with the passage of time, the meanings of these words have changed. In the earlier stages, these words were used for the babies. Whereas with the passage of time, the meaning of these words changed and now they are used for any stage of birds or any stage of swines. Secondly, the process of specialization or contraction of meaning is exemplified in such words as meat and counterfeit. Etymologically, meat is a portion of food measured. In Old English, its meaning broadened out from portion of food to simply food. It means that the meaning of the word changed with the passage of time. So today, once again, the word has a specialized meaning. Flesh used as food, so which emerged in the 14th century. To counterfeit meant to copy or reproduce, conveying no idea of a fraud. It means that the meaning of the word counterfeit was to copy or to reproduce. That conveyed the idea that there was no fraud. So this is the sense used by Shakespeare in The Merchant of Venice, where he uses the expression fair Portia's counterfeit. So it means where Shakespeare uses the expression fair Portia's counterfeit in Act 3, Scene 3, for the likeness of Portia that Bassanio discovers when he opens the casket. It means when he opens the casket, he uses this expression, and that expression is used, or the expression in which the word counterfeit is used, that actually means the exact copy. Thirdly, there are cases in which original meanings are replaced by newer meanings. So cunning originally meant knowing and knave, and it was just a boy. Nice etymologically meant foolish, and villain meant a slave serving in country house or villa. So these were the meanings of the words taken in the past. So though changes in meaning can be explained by considering and analyzing historical factors, most of the semantic associations appear quite arbitrary. A prominent era in which linguistic arbitrariness is noticeable is orthography. So orthography is the area in which linguistic arbitrariness is very noticeable. We have already seen how difficult it is to explain logically the relationship between a sound unit and its phonetic or graphic representation. It means that we already have discussed that it is very difficult to describe the relationship between an object and the sound that represents it or that is used for it. So English spelling system displays a surprising degree of waywardness to a layman. A sound is often seen to be differently represented in different words. The central vowel a or a is often represented in spelling by such diverse means as o or tough. So u, or the sound of a in bus and bus. It means as in these two words, the word bus and bus, we have the sound a, and a in star, the sound a in star, and fa, star and fa, and o in temporary, or the sound of a in temporary, etc. So similarly, the letters ch occur for ch, in chair, and arc. So in chair, ch stands for the sound ch, whereas in arc, this expression ch stands for k sound. And same is the case in chemistry. And sh in schmice. So however this should not lead a young learner to form the opinion that English language is totally chaotic. It means that the use of different expressions such as ch, if it is used as k in chemistry and ch in chair, it should not confuse a learner or a beginner, and he shouldn't have this idea that English language is totally chaotic. It is puzzling. So it is very much a language based on principles that obey rules and processes of occurrence that make it easy to describe scientifically. Now, my dear students, here we shall discuss that language is conventional and that language is creative and unique. So, my dear students, people who use language share its features of structure and rules. So these may be noticed slight idealectical. So these may be noticed idealectal differences and divergences. But that does not make their mutual speech act unpredictable. The overall system and patterns of particular language are largely shared. There appears to be a tacit agreement about the use of these among the speakers. In this respect, language is conventional. This is the feature that stabilizes the language systems and makes them available for the accurate description, even on the basis of a single speaker as an informant. Now, my dear students, let's see how language is creative and unique. So, in spite of many universally shared attributes such as symbolic and arbitrary character of language, each language is unique. Its phonology is specific to itself. Its morphology and syntactical patterns are explainable in terms of the uniqueness of the particular language. And my dear students, the form classes and functional categories, for example, of English are not shared by Hindi. It means that form classes and functional categories of English are not used in Hindi language or in Urdu language. Among various dialects of Hindi, also we find similar individual characteristics. Western Hindi and Eastern Hindi show such differences. Similarly, the languages which are used in Pakistan, for example, Punjabi language, in different cities of the country has different dialects. And it has been pointed out by linguists that though the rules and the standard interlocking of the phonological, grammatical and lexical systems are limited, it enables us to produce an infinite variety of expressions and utterances. It means that language helps us produce a variety of expressions and utterances. By mastering rules about generative processes, the user of language can create such sentences. It means that by learning the basic structures of grammar, a user can create so many sentences and higher forms of construction as have never before been attempted. It means that it is possible that any individual and any user of a language can create such utterances and create such structures which have never been created or which have never been used. So this imaginative possibility has been exploited by the poets and writers to extend the awareness and deepen insight into things in a way totally new. It means this is what poets and writers have been doing, and the literature of certain languages shows this quality of the writers, of the authors, and of the poets. So great creative writers in English language, beginning with the unknown authors of Beowulf and Chaucer, Langland, Earl of Surrey, Bacon, Shakespeare, Webster, Milton, Donne, Dryden, Swift, Defoe, Fielding, Jane Austen, Walter Scott to Dr. Johnson, Bronte sisters, Dickens, Thackeray, Monk, Foster, O. Henry, and so on, have each one of them used to the maximum this unique creative possibility. It means that the quality of language that is creative and unique has been used by all these writers of English language. And my dear students, in the end, let's see what we have discussed during this lecture. Once again, I repeat here that we have discussed that language is symbolic, language is arbitrary, and language is conventional. It is creative and unique. And my dear students, the other aspects of language and communication will be discussed in our second language, and I hope that you will be very soon ready to understand the content of our second language and our second lecture. Until then, I hope you will like, share, and subscribe our channel, our YouTube channel, so that you may have so many more videos on English linguistics, ELT, English literature, and spoken English. Now, take care, my dear students. Thank you so much for attending this lecture. God bless you. And once again, thank you so much.